Hey, Nutnfancy. How come you never review any CRKT knives? Yeah, I've got those messages. Well, I'll tell you what, here comes one now. This is a Columbia River Knife and Tool, or CRKT M16 Compact EDC knife. EDC stands for Everyday Carry. And that is, of course, what category this knife falls into, in my opinion. This is a utility knife, one that we would carry on our person. How you doing? Every day. That would be the game plan, at least. There is a lot to like about the knife, and I have carried it extensively in the past. I don't so much nowadays, just because I have some other knives I'm digging more. But it's still a good blade, and I'm going to talk about its really good points and maybe a couple downsides on it too. And of course, your mileage may vary, and I understand that. So let's get going. First off and foremost is the weight of this knife is outstanding. It's lightweight. 2.1 ounces to be exact, and that is very light, especially when you're talking that we're going to get almost a 3-inch long blade out of the deal. That's pretty cool. So good job on the weight, and a lot of that lightweight has to deal with the way the handle, of course, was manufactured. This is a 6000 series aluminum handle, covered in a very attractive, by the way, British racing green coloration. That's what they call it. It's kind of a dark forest green, so they avoided the leprechaun hues that I totally do not like, i.e. the bright greens. So this is a very nicely done green. I like it a lot. I'm a big fan of OD green and also British green, which is a very dark kind of a forest green like this one. Nicely done. But getting back to the weight of the handle, of course it's lightweight because they have it drilled out. And it's very skeletonized throughout, which is very characteristic of many of CRKT designs, which I love. I love it when manufacturers are doing everything in their power to make the knife as light as possible, and they pretty much have done that with the EDC here. Now, this is a hit on all holy handle knives. In other words, handles that have a lot of holes in them. Is just be advised, they will gather a lot of lint and crap and gunk in those holes as you carry them, and if you use it in a muddy environment or a dirty environment, they're going to pack full of mud. I've had that happen on several of my designs like this, and I've learned just by the school of hard knocks that it's going to take you a little bit of knife maintenance to clean them out. So that's the downside to when you decide to have a skeletonized handle, whatever it is. In my opinion, it's better, kind of like just using this Rat 1 for example, to have a closed handle design. However, the upside, of course, at least in this design, is we're getting a lot lighter knife out of the deal. So that's cool. Let's talk more about the handle, the ergonomics. It's not super ergonomic because it's just a small handle. And that's part of an outgrowth of just its design. On the upside, the handle and the blade are almost a 1-to-1 ratio. In other words, the blade is about 3 inches long. The handle is just over 3 inches long. And that's really good because that makes it very compact. Again, compact EDC is its name. Excuse me, and it lives up to that. So good job. But again, to the ergonomics, the downside would be there's not a lot of real estate for your hand. Even if your hands are small, you're going to run out of room on this little knife. Now, understand that we're talking small compact EDC, kind of like the SOG Flash 1, one of my favorites, and the same could be said for this knife as well. So, that being said, in the ergonomics, as far as a lightweight, tiny EDC knife goes, I guess they're fine. But it's kind of just an awkward handle shape a little bit for me. As I curl my finger, it's going to come right here into, you know, the down sweep of the butt. But that's a very minor issue. Let's talk to the blade. Now, this is a critique against just the blade shape and not the M16 EDC. And I'm not a big fan of spear point blades. I'm just not. And I will call them, and this is just my terminology, kind of a compound ground blade. In other words, it's flat right here, unsharpened swage here on the top, and the maker decided that about midpoint down the spine, a little bit down lower, we're going to go ahead and start running towards our edge. So the grind towards the edge starts about mid-spine. In this example, this is a hollow ground portion here, and then of course it terminates in our edge. Now the reason, let me speak to something else first. In this EDC model, when we decide that we're going to start, or any knife for that matter, when we do a mid-spine grind on down, generally it means that we're going to have kind of a steeper angle towards the edge, especially over the years as we sharpen it over and over again, and that will lead to a duller knife. And in this, when I got this knife from the maker, I was not happy with the edge, and I took it to my knife sharpener and had him back that edge off and reprofile it. So now it's running about a 20-degree grind on there. And by reprofile, what I mean is they make that angle, which was previously steeper, they grind it more and they shallow it out, and therefore this edge right here is shallower and sharper that way. And for me, once that's done, it's easier to sharpen. But that's just me. I reprofile a lot of my blades to make them shallower in the grind and the relief cuts to the edge, so that way they're just sharper, easier for me to sharpen. Now back to the criticisms of the Spear Point. I don't think it's a great EDC blade because it doesn't have enough sweep for me. And by reference, I would like sweep of, I don't know, I'm just grabbing this because it's handy, the Blade Tech Guyana Light. See how that has a sweep to it? To me, most of my cutting on my EDC blades is going to be right around here, and I bet you're the same. It's going to be near the tip. So anytime I have a straight blade like a Wharncliffe design or a Spear Point design, I just seem like I get a lot of wear and tear on my tip because there's not a lot of sweep there, so most of my cutting is right around here. That's just me. I prefer more sweep in my EDC blades. Now for defensive tasks, i.e. purely defensive, a Spear Point obviously is fine. It's designed to, how you do, stab. How you doing? Stab, just like a spear is, hence the name. So, but again, I think this knife is an EDC knife, not so much a defensive knife. It's just too small. Now, could we press this into emergency defensive use? You bet you could. That slick handle would come into play there, though. And the handle is slick. I forgot to mention that. It's beautiful. It has a real nice, comfortable finish on it, but there's no traction on it at all, pretty much. So the blade, again, Spear Point, I felt the need to reprofile it to a shallower grind. That makes it sharper. Now also, it's made out of 154 cm. I think current M16 EDCs by CRKT are made out of AUS 8, which is a decent steel. Given the choice between the two, I would prefer this version, a 154 cm version. And for once, I actually bought a knife whose steel got worse and not better. Seems like most of my Kershaw knives were in 440A and they just got better over time, so that sucks. This one I scored, and it's a better steel than they're offering now. So, coolios. Stamped on the side, Carson Design M16 01K. Nice, I like that. Made in Taiwan, who cares? As long as quality control is good, it doesn't matter where the knife blade's made. Has a liner lock on it, and it is somewhat thin. However, like many of CRKT designs, it has a LAWKS mechanism which prevents that liner lock from folding in. So that's cool. The lock on mine was very stiff, in fact very stiff. I did have to flitz it up, and I think I've pretty much cured it. Flitz it meaning I polished the metal portions of it, and it seems like it disengages a lot easier now. How does the deployment speed on this M16 EDC? It's fast, and it's very well balanced. Really nice deployment, comes out nice, locks up nice and solid. There's no movement left to right, up and down at all in the M16 EDC. Very nice. It has some jimping on the back of the blade here, so that's decent. And it's actually pretty sharp. So even though there's no thumb ramp, you're going to have to jam your thumb straight down on that spine to get a purchase. That works too. Another way you can hold the knife, by the way, is by the serrated thumb or pivot screw too. So your hand will actually lock in there nicely as well. And again, I do like that LAWKS. How about the clip? I would, of course, like I always say, like it mounted on this end so I can do a tip-up carry. But the clip itself is very well executed. Pay attention, Blade Tech. This is a very thin clip. It's blackened and it's perfectly shaped and profiled. Excellent job on the clip, although it's mounted on the wrong end for me. But overall nice. So, running out of time like I always do, that's the EDC. By the way, it's pillar construction, open flow through, so allow gunk to flow this way at least. And Torx heads on those if you need to take your knife apart to clean it, which I recommend doing if you get it in mud or salt water. Maybe not salt water, you might be able to rinse that out. So, good looking knife, super lightweight, very fast, locks up tight. I'm not a big fan of the no sweep blade on the Spear Point, but it's definitely a good EDC option. That's a CRKT M16 EDC. Thanks.